What's up, everybody? Bienvenidos to my weekly live chat, my weekly live Q&A number 21. My name is Danny Segura. I'm a mixed martial arts reporter for MMAJunkie.com, formerly MMAfighting.com. So as self-explanatory as this title says, it's a live Q&A. I answer your questions that you've submitted via Twitter. Then I take things over to the YouTube live chat, and I answered those questions there. So if you didn't have time to ask via Twitter, no worries. You'll have time to do that in the later part of this video once I'm done with the Twitter questions. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate the people that submitted questions. Remember, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tell people about it. Tell people that you like this live Q&A so much, and it's so great, right? So a lot going on. We just wrapped up with a trio of events that resumes the UFC schedule amid pandemic. So first three events, first week out, back in business. It was, I would say, it's a pretty successful week. And then there's been other headlines as well that you guys have asked about, including current light heavyweight champion Jon Jones poking at Francis Ngannou, and Francis Ngannou firing back. Obviously, Ngannou, number one contender at heavyweight currently, and one of the scariest men alive. And also, I would say, the most powerful striker in MMA, period. Maybe even combat sports. I don't know. But certainly MMA, by far the most powerful striker we've seen. So a lot to get to. Like I said, if you didn't submit questions via Twitter, you can do so in the live chat, and I'll get to those in the later part of this video. Now, I might do a little bit of a mix today because I see some good questions. So anonymous dude always, gets this thing kicked off properly. 1 second here. What happened with this screen? Anonymous dude 123. Hey y'all, hope everyone's having a chill night. Danny, what's the drink and how is the dog? So the drink is Coors Light. I'm not a huge fan of Coors Light, but just like 2 blocks from where I live, a friend of a friend was moving out, or she already moved out. She moved back to LA, and basically needed my friend to help her clear out the apartment. And then within that was a lot of alcohol, including a Tito's bottle of vodka, Sedvedka vodka as well, a bunch of orange liqueurs, and Coors Light. So it's one of those things that beggars ain't choosers, right? So it's not bad. It's not bad. And as far as the dog, he's laying right here. Touch you. Say what's up, Hachi. And he's been doing all right. He's been having some separation anxiety a little bit, which is obviously not good. But it's hard to treat that because I'm always home because I can't go anywhere because of COVID-19. And but every time I leave to like a bodega or something like real quick to get some food or the supermarket, he just like starts crying a lot. My roommate tells me, so that's been a bit of an issue, but everything else has been fine. So yeah, great dog. Hopefully I can, I get to leave a little bit the house a little bit more, so he can get used to me leaving and knowing that I come back, so that he doesn't freak out, but little by little. But he's a great dog. All right, so let's get this thing started. Question number 1 by my fellow Floridian, Jose Navarrete. Hello, Danny. Greetings from South Florida. Good luck in South Florida, by the way. Florida just opened up. I have friends that work as waitresses in other industries as well. And, just public spaces, they're all open. So restaurants, everything. So, if you're out there back in the workforce, good luck with COVID-19, and hopefully, the state governments are correct in the reopening. We'll see. But yeah, good luck to everybody, and hopefully everyone stays safe. All right, Jose Navarrete says, with Jon Jones calling out Ngannou at heavyweight, it got me thinking of fighters that are risk adverse. I don't believe that any fighter is scared, but I do feel many weighed out the risk reward. Does Jon move up? So fantastic question for those that have been tuning into social media and just sort of the MMA news cycle in the last few days. Really after Ngannou shortly after Ngannou picked up that win over Jairzinho Rosenstruck. And also something that had to do with it was Big Ben Rothwell beating Ovin Samprou. I believe that's how it started. Jon Jones commented something along the lines of, oh, this is so interesting. Now watching OSP do his thing at heavyweight, like it's got me excited or something like that. And then Ngannou answered back, and then that's how they started. Um, so obviously there's risks with moving to heavyweight. I think for some fighters there are more risks than others. Like say like an OSP, he had nothing to lose in that situation. I mean, he was on a losing streak at light heavyweight, so hell, you might as well go try, you know, one, two, the biggest weight class and see how you do there. Maybe you do better, maybe you don't. But either way, you have the option to come back and you have nothing to lose. It's not like you're holding on to a ranking or anything like that. Now, in this case, this is a little bit different because Jon Jones is the light heavyweight champion. So even if he takes an L at heavyweight, he'll still be champion. But, it's still not a good look for a champion to be coming off a loss and then defending the title. Although for his case, I don't think it matters a whole lot, but it's still something to think of. Does he actually move up? Look, he's expressed many times before when the division looked to be clear before the Anthony Smith matchups, really just after the Cormier and the Gustafsson matchup, which seemed like the inevitable and the big rematches in the weight class. And after that, there was really no contenders. This was even before even Dominic Reyes knocked out Chris Weidman. So when they were asking, oh, are you going to move up to heavyweight? Because it seems like now is the time. There's no contenders, this and that. Cormier is the champion, all this other stuff. He never had any interest to moving to heavyweight. Zero. And I still think that's the case. I think this is just back and forth social media banter. A lot of people have ran with it and sort of, obviously, like it's news. I mean, we're talking about the light heavyweight champion, teasing a move up to heavyweight and taking on one of the biggest and scariest strikers in the division. So it's definitely something that should be reported, obviously. But as far as, and it could actually happen, but me personally, I don't think it does. I mean, Jones has never expressed interest in moving to heavyweight. If anything, he's gone out of his way to sort of pick a fight with Israel Adesanya, the middleweight champion. So why do it now? I mean, if there was a time to do it, was to do it against Daniel Cormier, who had the belt, who he's beaten before. So it'd be fighting basically a light heavyweight and a heavyweight. I mean, there was some differences there. I think we all noticed that Cormier looks to be a much better fighter at heavyweight than light heavyweight. But either way, it just seemed like that was the perfect opportunity. So now move up, challenge somebody that doesn't have a belt in Ngannou. And also, he's fighting a true heavyweight in Francis Ngannou, the scariest striker in the game. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Jones is scared. And frankly, I think if that fight goes down, I would actually favor Ngannou, but I wouldn't count Jon out at all. I think it'd actually be pretty even. So, yeah, by no means is Jon Jones scared. I mean, he's the baddest man on the planet right now. But, I mean, it's a huge risk for him, and there are plenty of challenges now that have recently came up at light heavyweight. I mean, there's that rematch with Dominic Reyes. Thiago Santos is still an attractive option. Jan Blachowicz has been doing phenomenal, obviously stopping Corey Anderson fairly recent, right, earlier this year. So there are a lot of options for him. Israel Adesanya could move up, in the future. So right now, there's no shortage of options for Jon Jones. So really, the move to heavyweight in this particular time doesn't make much sense. If he were to move, it would have been back when Cormier was champion. I thought that made the most sense. But I think this is just again, fun banter with Ngannou and staying in the news and the headlines. I really don't think he wants that smoke. If you think about sort of the type of fights that a light heavyweight would favor at heavyweight, would either be guys that can't fight, guys that would have like a speed advantage over, right? Ngannou's fairly quick for heavyweight. And also, guys that are slow and big. Like Ngannou is very, very athletic. And so a lot of the advantages that Jon would think he would have at heavyweight, I think there will still be there. Obviously, he's the smaller man, so I expect him to be the slicker guy. But it's not like he's fighting, someone very slow. So, yeah, I really don't think this is actually true. I don't think he's gonna move up And if he's going to move up, he's going to risk it all and fight for the belt. He's not going to fight Ngannou for what? Not even a number one contender spot, because the next spot is Cormier. Cormier is the guy fighting Stipe. So I really don't think it makes sense. So, me personally, I'm not going to get too caught up on it, but I know people are freaking out of Jon Jones sort of going back and forth with Ngannou, but it's not going to happen. I really don't think so. Now, it makes sense. It makes sense for both guys. More for Ngannou than Jon Jones, because Ngannou, again, he's on the sidelines because Stipe has got to do his thing with Cormier. But for Jon Jones, doesn't make that much sense. And look, with all these fights getting backed up, the UFC can put on some pretty big fights. It's not like they're, Conor McGregor's out and he's like, I'm not fighting for a good while. It's not, it's not like they don't have options right now. So I don't believe this move to heavyweight. I really don't think it happens. In fact, I would say Jon Jones never moves to heavyweight. I think he ends his career as a light heavyweight. That's what I think. But again, anything's possible, right? Mayweather fought McGregor. So never say never, but I don't think it happens. All right, let's go to question number 2. Great question, by the way. Anonymous Dude 123 now on Twitter. This is a great question. This is a fun question. Danny, what are the top 3 most intriguing champion versus champion fights to you? Thank you. So his options were Miocic versus Jon Jones. I like it. Look, I would say this. I would favor Jon Jones' chances against Miocic, even though I think Miocic would beat Ngannou in a rematch. But I would favor Jon Jones. He would fare better against Miocic than Ngannou. Because basically what light heavyweights are trying to do, and I'll get back to your question, but I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here. Anonymous Dude 123. Basically what light heavyweights want at heavyweight is to either do 2 things. Either to fight a heavyweight that's not athletic enough so they can implement their light heavyweight game onto the heavyweights and have success there. Perfect example is Ryan Bader running through all the heavyweights in Bellator. The dude didn't fight them like heavyweights. If he wanted to fight them like heavyweights, it probably would have been rougher through his run in the tournament. But he fought him like a light heavyweight. So he would get low, shoot for takedowns. Heavyweights are used to tying up, right? They're not used to someone getting real low and shooting doubles. Ryan Bader using the speed, the timing to perform just that, and using the light heavyweight conditioning on a heavyweight and basically out cardioing them. That's basically what most light heavyweights look to do at heavyweight. Now, the problem where they run into that move up to heavyweight is meeting heavyweights that are very good and can fight like light heavyweights. So someone like Stipe Miocic, yeah, he's a heavyweight, but the dude can jab. The dude can move. The dude can wrestle, right? We saw that against Ngannou. So now all of a sudden, yeah, you might have the speed advantage and all of that, but you have someone that can kind of match you skill for skill. Plus, that person is a lot bigger, has a lot more power in the weight class. So anyways, just a little rant there, but Jon would not have a lot of those advantages he seeks, or not him specifically, but advantages that light heavyweights seek when moving up to heavyweight. Ngannou is not the guy. Ngannou is extremely athletic for heavyweight. Anyways, plus Jones has become sort of hittable, in this later stage of his career. We saw Santos land some good shots. We saw Reyes land some good shots. You can't afford to have a lot of good shots be landed on you, even if you have a granite chin. Ngannou lands a shot on you, you can have the best chin in the world, you're going to sleep. So anyhow, so the options were Miocic versus Jones, Jones versus Adesanya. I like very much. Adesanya versus Usman. I think between 170 and 185 is too much of a gap. I don't think that fight's all that possible, but you never know. I mean, welterweights have moved up to 85 before, right? Darren Till, Kelvin Gastelum, Robert Whittaker became champion, being a former welterweight. So you never know, but still. Usman versus Nurmagomedov. I like that. Nurmagomedov versus Volkanovski. Doesn't really do it for me. Nunes versus Shevchenko. I like that very much. Volkanovski versus Cejudo. I'm into it. And Shevchenko versus Zhang. Ooh, those are all good options, man. Let's see. The top 3. I think number 1 would be... Adesanya Jones. I think that would be very interesting. That would be a very interesting fight. Adesanya Jones is my number one. Number two would be mm, believe it or not, Shevchenko versus Weili Zhang. Shevchenko, she's so good. I want to see her get tested. And it's not like I didn't see her get tested at 135. I did. But I feel like she's improved a lot since. And also, I feel like she found her right weight class. So Zhang is not a small girl. I've seen her in person. She's quite big for 115. So at 125, I don't think she'd lose that much of an advantage. I feel like she's probably bigger than a lot of 25ers, to be honest. Maybe even bigger than some of the ladies that Shevchenko has fought at 125. So I feel like the size thing wouldn't really play out. Whereas, and I'm not trying to diminish Nunes's win, but I feel like a big part of why Shevchenko lost was weight. But if all things were equal, I think Shevchenko is one of the best fighters on the planet. Period. I think she could probably beat Nunes. So I would say Zhang Shevchenko would be my number two. Number three, Volkanovski Cejudo is actually very interesting. Nunes Shevchenko, I actually want to see that. I hope it actually comes down. I mean, the GOAT of women's MMA right now, Champ versus Shevchenko, who's become one of the most dominant champions in the UFC. That'd be interesting as well. But Usman Nurmagomedov is also good. So I'll do this. I'll do Jones Adesanya, Shevchenko Zhang, and I'll do Miocic Jones. Because I do want to see Jones at heavyweight. Although I don't think it happens, but I do want to see him at heavyweight. Fun question. Nice little graphic there, too. All right. Question número 3 by Michael Terrell. 2 parts to this question. Now, I didn't include part B on it, but I will read it because of space issues. So, 2-part question. Does DC have any justification to be frustrated with Stipe when A, DC ducked Stipe to fight Derek Lewis at UFC 230 in MSG, resulting in an entire year before a rematch? And B was Stipe is healing his eye, which DC poked in both fights. Question mark, exclamation point, exclamation point. So, DC does have justification to be frustrated. I mean, the man wants to fight, and he can't right now. They're one apiece, all that. Of course he does, but he also has to understand that he kind of did the same thing to Stipe, right? In the sense of, I don't agree with you with the Derek Lewis situation. The Derek Lewis situation was actually different. It has nothing to do with what you're mentioning as far as like DC ducked Stipe. That has nothing to do with it. What happened basically with the Derek Lewis fight is that they needed a main event for that MSG card. I mean, that fight got announced like a month before the fight card itself. That never happened, especially with championship fights and fights that happen in MSG. They just don't happen. That doesn't happen. You don't go, all right, yeah, guys, in 2 weeks, we got MSG going. Like, that doesn't happen. What happened was that they didn't have a fight for it. So DC stepped up, and he was injured. He's a company man, and this is well documented. When in my interview with his coach, Javi Mendes, he said that DC was injured, but we knew that he could wrestle. We knew that there was things he could do and rely on in that fight. Even with injury, he could get through them using these other skills, which were wrestling, and we saw how that played out against Derek Lewis, because Derek Lewis doesn't have much wrestling. So that was the scenario. Basically, DC being a company man, stepping up and fighting Derek Lewis to save that card a little bit. Now, what he did do as far as ducking, which it wasn't really ducking, but it was putting Stipe on ice, was that he wanted that Brock Lesnar fight. And, Brock Lesnar, by no means is he a number 1 contender. Is he a top 5 heavyweight, a top 10 heavyweight, not even a top 15? I mean, the guy hasn't fought in forever. The last time he fought was Mark Hunt, and even that was controversial, right? He got popped for steroids. So it was just a big money grab. That's what it was. I mean, I don't think anyone that actually knows about MMA. So I'm assuming if you're watching this, you're a hardcore like myself. None of you guys actually thought that Brock Lesnar had a chance in beating Cormier. No way. Maybe if he's matched up against a striker, you go, okay, maybe I can see it in the wrestling department. But look, if you're a superior wrestler, you could actually out wrestle Brock Lesnar, even though Brock Lesnar's pretty good wrestler himself. But we saw Kane do it. You know, Kane trains with DC. DC's like amazing wrestler, right? So he can handle there. And then the striking, DC would tune up Brock Lesnar. So there was no, really the only reason for that was because it was the spectacle and the money. That was it. So he was willing to put Miocic rematch, who Miocic was at the time the most dominant heavyweight in the UFC history, given the fact that he had 3 title defenses. It's not much, but it's the record. So that in itself, I think, kind of pissed off Stipe, and Stipe took the stance, was like, oh, I'm just going to hold out, kind of like the Tyron Woodley route. And it worked out for him because Brock Lesnar never came back. So in that sense, he did duck, and I'm doing duck because he didn't really duck him. He just went with the bigger money, which I don't blame him. This is prize fighting at the end of the day. So Stipe is kind of doing the same thing back. Like, okay, no, you're going to fight when I want to fight. Like, you didn't want to fight me then. Now that I have the belt and you want it, now we're going to fight on my terms. That's exactly what he's doing. And, does Cormier have a right to feel frustrated? 100%. But those were the cards that he played back then. And those are the cards that you should play because you should try to get the most money you can within prize fighting. But, you just got to understand that when you're at the receiving end of that, at the short end, when you got the short end of the stick, that's the way it's going to go. So, he played those cards and, now the man right now is Stipe with the belt, and they're going to fight on his terms. And, it's tough to strip a champion. So it's all negotiation, and Stipe is the guy with the leverage. And I feel like Cormier understands that. I mean, he's a veteran. He's been around the game. He's done that kind of, played those kind of cards before. So, but again, I don't expect anything else from DC doing, campaigning for it and putting pressure on the fight to go on. These are just things that happen in the fight game. Also, I noticed that DC was very into that. Was that mentioned in the first question? Let me pull this up. No, it wasn't. But anyways, I thought it was. Where did I read that? Anyways, DC was like super into that Jon Jones versus Ngannou fight. That was from Ariel Helwani's MMA show. And he was like, yeah, that's the most gangster thing. And 100%, like moving up to heavyweight and be like, all right, the guy that nobody wants to fight, the guy that's not even the champion. Like, I'm not even, prize fighting per se. I'm just picking the toughest challenge at the time, Ngannou. That is extremely gangster, for sure, 100%. But it's also good for Cormier. Think about it. The only person that could, kind of throw a wrench into the trilogy with Miocic would be Ngannou, because he's clearly the number one contender. He's clearly a fighter that people want to see. And if they're going to implement an interim title, it'd be DC Ngannou. And I don't know if DC wants that. I mean, again, I don't think DC's scared, but there's not much into, like, it's simple. Like, who would you rather fight? Like, for the real belt or for the interim belt? For the real belt, obviously. So he has his eyes on Stipe. But if Jones were to move up to heavyweight and fight Ngannou, it would kind of take that off his back, that pressure of having a number one contender that's been active right there. So that's also good for him. Think about that. Anyhow. So yeah, hopefully I answered your question there. But yeah, he has the right to feel frustrated. But again, this is the fight game. These things happen. You know how you avoid that? By remaining the champ. But obviously it's easier said than done. All right, a pass of wokeness. Back at it again. I'm surprised he didn't ask me about Poirier. Surprised. Very surprised. Every week. Nonstop. 155 is still crazy. 1 and 4 seem to only want to fight each other and not 5 and 10. What do guys like Hooker, Felder, and Charles do for now? So that's very interesting, and it's a trend we've been seeing. Like, the guys that are 1-4 or just really the top 5, they really hold on to their number so much that they'll remain inactive, in the sense of, I'm not down to take a number 8 or 10 or 12. Like, why? When I want number 4, because I could potentially, once you reach the top 5, you could very well be a fight away from fighting for the title. Obviously, if you're number one and you get a win, most likely you're fighting for the title. But I'm talking about the guys that are at like 4, 5, 6. Really, if you get the right opponent with the right ranking and you get the right type of win as well, you're one win. It's a title eliminator, basically. If you're ranked number 5 and you pick up a first round knockout and shock the world over number 3, number 2, you're probably getting a title shot. So there's reason to hold on to those numbers. So I don't blame the fighters, but I think that is a flaw in the system, because then it creates a logjam and it creates this weird dynamic where you get the same guys fighting each other, and the young guys that are up and coming that should be getting those big names are being deprived of those big names. Why? Because people are holding on to their ranking, and rightfully so. I'm not blaming the fighters at all. I'm just saying it's a flaw in the system. I think the rankings in the system should favor activity level. Because, if that's the case and we're going to measure activity, then a guy that's at number 12 can be like, all right, F it. Number 6 doesn't want to fight me. I'll just take on number 10. I'll take on number 11. I'll take on number 14. And I'll just fight my ass off and get 3 wins, And that should move you up the rankings. I think activity level should be definitely a thing. Because if you look at the UFC rankings, often there's a lot of guys there that are not active. So you see guys like, for example, I don't know, like a Chito Era, right? Like he's got like 5 fights logged in, 5 first round finishes, or not first round, but 5 finishes. Obviously he lost recently, but prior to that. And other guys as well that are like crazy win streaks, or like a Vicente Luque before he lost to Steven Wonderboy. And you go, how the hell is this guy not in the rankings? He's so active. He's clearly proving time after time that, well, he might not be the best because he's not fighting the best, but he's certainly one of the best because he's beating everybody else that, gets put in front of him, or her. But yeah, so I think the rankings should favor activity level. Let me pull up the UFC rankings. It's ridiculous, honestly. You see some fighters be like, this guy hasn't fought since when? It's crazy. But they're still ranked. Let me remove this so it doesn't get in my face. So let me matchmake the lightweight division right now. This is the Danny Segura matchmaking. All right. So lightweight, you got Justin Gaethje, interim champion. He's your number 1 contender. Obviously, Khabib, the champion, doesn't count because he's the champion. So the number 1 goes to Gaethje. Number 2, Tony Ferguson. He just lost. I think if you're coming off a loss, you should automatically, unless it's controversial, get bumped out of the top 5. Simple. Like the rankings there needs to be a system where it keeps them moving. And what keeps the wheel moving is activity, type of opponent that you beat, like that. But a lot of these guys lose. Like, think about this. A guy can fight the champion, lose, and still be the number 1 contender. You just proved you weren't the number 1 contender. You didn't do the job. You didn't win the fight. You shouldn't be in the top 5. It's crazy. But anyways, Tony Ferguson's number 2. Number 3 is Dustin Poirier. Number 4 is Conor McGregor. Number 5, like Conor McGregor, when was the last time Conor McGregor fought at lightweight? Last time he fought was at welterweight, and before that was against Khabib Nurmagomedov. What was it, in summer? Right? Let me pull that up just to double check here. Like, dude shouldn't be in the top 5. Now, that win at welterweight against Cerrone, all right, if that puts you in the rankings at welterweight, I don't hate it. But at lightweight, why should it be in the top 5? Yeah, he lost to Nurmagomedov back in October of 2018. Dude hasn't had a fight since October of 2018, and he's still in the top 5 of the UFC's lightweight rankings. That is nuts. Then number 5, you got Dan Hooker. Then 6, Paul Felder. 7, Charles Oliveira. 8, Ali Quinta. 9, Kevin Lee. 10, Diego Ferreira. So at this point, yeah, number 1 through 4. So Justin Gaethje, he's holding out. I mean, rightfully so. He just won the interim belt. He wants to unify the title, and that fight should totally happen. That's what makes sense. So he's not fighting anybody below him. Completely understandable. And the right move. Number 2, Tony Ferguson. He just had a war. He just had a beating from Justin Gaethje, a pretty bad one. And as bad as Tony Ferguson is, dude, take some time off. Take some time off. So I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him all the way till the end of the year. Really, December, if that. Tony Ferguson should take a break. Then you got number 3, Dustin Poirier. The man's been itching for a fight, but again, like you mentioned in the comments, a passive wokeness. He's holding number 3 is a nice number, dude. It's a nice number. So he's holding out for that. So think about this. Tony Ferguson's coming off a loss. It benefits him more to fight somebody coming off a loss because he's number 2 than, say, like a Dan Hooker who's been killing it because he's all the way at 5. So rankings make no sense. But I would match up Poirier versus Dan Hooker. I know Poirier wants that big fight. But dude, you're also coming off a loss. You know what I'm saying? Against the champion. So, you know, get some wind back in your sails and then see what's up. So I think a fight with Dan Hooker is perfect. I mean, Hooker wants a big name. Poirier needs a win. And look, if you want to prove you're still the guy that can dethrone the champion, you're still the guy at 155 pounds that people should watch out for. You're still the guy, you know, the best in the world. You fight the guys that are coming up. You fight the guys with the new skills. You fight the guys that the fresh blood. And you remind the people, no, he might be the future, but I'm still the present. So Dan Hooker fight, I think that's the fight that should happen. Again, and also for Poirier, it's not really a step down if you think about it. It's the top 5, like top 5 opponent. That's pretty damn good. Felder, on the other hand, he fought. Who did he fight on his last fight? And he lost closely. Dan Hooker, yes. Felder should fight Charles Oliveira at 7. I don't hate that. That'd be fun. It's a big win for Felder as well. If he were to get a win, he would get back. He'd be back in the mix. And Charles Oliveira needs a little bit of a name. Paul Felder, again, not the biggest name at 155. As far as like a superstar or anything like that, but again, someone that's a veteran, someone that's proven to be an excellent fighter. So you know, Charles needs more of those wins that validate, like, yeah, this guy's legit. He did that with Kevin Lee, but I think, you know, obviously with a Paul Felder win, then you got to be like, all right, this guy should get a top 3 and, you know, something like that. And then let's see. Then 8, Al. I wouldn't hate Al, for example, fighting a Ferreira, who's coming off a Anthony Pettis win. And then you got a bunch of young guys at the bottom. Islam Makhachev, he needs a big fight. I'd like to see him against. I like that Gregor Gillespie matchup. That was fun. I mean, it was never official, but there was rumblings that those two were going to fight. And the fight never came to fruition. And Gillespie hasn't fought since he got knocked out by Kevin Lee. Wrestling-wise, it would be fun. So I would go Islam, Gillespie. Alex Hernandez is currently 15, but I'm guessing he's going to get bumped down, you know, once these get updated. Yeah. Kevin Lee, I don't know what his deal is. He said he was probably going to be out for a while. But yeah, Charles Oliveira versus Paul Felder sounds like a good time. Dan Hooker versus Poirier sounds amazing. Tony Ferguson, take some time off. Justin Gaethje, fight the champion. Conor McGregor, fight Nate Diaz. And that's how I would match up the lightweight division. Now, Anthony Pettis could be an interesting player. He has interest of going back down to 155. He's the guy that could, again, not a huge fight as far as the rankings, but he's a big name, so he can offer a lot of value to some of these younger guys. So if Paul Felder wants to fight someone else and doesn't want to take Charles Oliveira versus Anthony Pettis sounds fun. That would be a rematch. Pettis beat Oliveira at 145. That's how Pettis ended up getting a title shot and fighting Max Holloway, right? So that would make sense. And, you know, since that time, Pettis' career has kind of, you know, done this, but kind of went down for the most part. I mean, he's getting older. This is no knock on him. And Charles Oliveira has done this. So that'd be fun. I wouldn't mind if they revisit that sort of matchup. That'd be cool. But yeah, anyways, that's how I would match up the 155-pound division. All right, yeah. So that was the last question of the Twitter questions. So as I said at the very start of this video, I answer the Twitter questions first. I give those priority, and then I take things over to the live chat where you guys have been commenting and asking questions and all that. So I'll answer those for the remaining time, which we got about 20 minutes. So it's a good amount of time. All right. Oh, by the way, I always keep forgetting. I see anonymous dude donated in the super chat. I plan on improving this thing. Whatever you see now, it's not a finished product. This whole thing will get better. So I got, for example, a Magic Mouse, which makes makes managing and controlling this a lot easier. I've invested in it. Obviously, got this mic, got the HD camera, got a keyboard. I actually want to upgrade it to a mechanical keyboard because this keyboard is kind of, my computer. Never mind. My keyboard is not the greatest. But anyway, so I want to do a bunch of improvements on this thing, and obviously that takes time and money. And and if you guys like what I'm doing here and you want me to, do more and do other things as well, then those donations come a long way. So I would appreciate it, but I also know times are tough. So just with you watching the video and the advertisement money and all that, like that in itself, if you've already subscribed and gave this video a thumbs up and you ask questions regularly, you've already done enough. If you want to donate money, I would greatly appreciate that, but don't feel required to do so, not at all. But yes, but I do plan on growing this thing and make it bigger as time goes on. All right, Jackson Rounds. That's a cool picture. I don't know what that is, but looks like Topo Gigio. Anyways, Jackson Round asks, does Barboza stay at 145 now or go back to lightweight? He claimed he has to eat a lot to stay at 155, then says he has 168, 170 pounds on fight night versus Ige. Holy shit, is that true? Did he actually say that? Fuck. 170 pounds on fight night? How is this? So anyways, yeah, so that kind of doesn't make sense. Jackson Rounds, like you're kind of hitting the nail on the head there. So he says he has to eat a lot to stay at 155, but then says he's 170 pounds on fight night at featherweight. That's kind of crazy. Well, whenever fighters are moving down in weight class, like from heavyweight to light heavyweight, there's guys at heavyweight, we've seen it, they have a lot of fat. So it makes sense. So I'm always in support of that. Now, believe it or not, you can actually have, even with a higher body fat percentage and not a debilitating weight cut, you can actually be a better fighter at heavyweight than you can at light heavyweight. A lot depends on your styles and your skills. But anyways, so there are certain situations like that. And then from lightweight to welterweight, for the most part, I support that move. Welterweight to middleweight, I support that move, right? Guys like Darren Till. Middleweight to light heavyweight, I support that move. And then dropping down from light heavyweight to 185, depending on who you are, could be a good idea. For the most part, in the bigger weight classes, all that makes sense. Now, from when you get to the lower weight classes, that's when you go, ooh. So, like, for example, Aldo moving down to 135, being a guy that's had issues cutting down to 145, a guy that's by no means small at 145, then you go, you scratch your head and you go, ooh, that's not good. In this case, Barboza from 155 to 145, you go, ooh, that's not good. Remember Pettis, I just mentioned his move to 45. That never did him any good. He just didn't look good. And he made the weight once against Charles Oliveira. And then after that, his body couldn't take it. So you can make the weight. You can deplete yourself maybe once, maybe twice. But actually having a long, sustained career, 10 pounds below, that's a bit of an issue. Now, if you're going to go for a one-off and a quick run at the title, kind of makes sense, especially if you're older into your career. So Aldo did that. I was very skeptical. If you guys have been following me for a while, I was very skeptical of that move. Then he actually did it, and he looked pretty damn good come fight night. The whole week, he looked like shit, I'm not going to lie. But when it came down to fighting, the man fought, and I thought he won. He beat Moraes, who's an amazing fighter. So, it depends on the person. And you can kind of see someone's body type and see their style and all this, and make predictions on how they'll look at a weight class below, but you really won't know until fight night comes around. So in this case, Edson Barboza coming down to 145, I was very skeptical. And in the virtual media day, I asked him all that, like why? Why are you dropping down to 145? How are you feeling? And he's like, I'm feeling good. And he was like, he did not look good, man. So I was like, ooh, I don't know how this works. But the guy actually showed up, fought Ige. I thought he won. I thought he took the last 2 rounds. And I thought Ige won the first. I didn't think it was that controversial. Like, it was a close fight, don't get me wrong. But I wasn't like scratching my head at the end of those rounds and being like, ooh, like, I don't know. Like, it was a close fight, don't get me wrong. But I thought Barboza won. But anyways, he looked pretty good. And as I said on my previous, actually not my previous live Q&A, but the recap that I did before the fight. I mean the recap after the fight. Sorry. I liked how he looked at 145. His speed, he's not as quick as he is at 155 because those guys are a little bit slower, and so he's fighting faster opposition. But he's always been a fast guy in the first place. So I like him at 145 because speed wise he's there. Power I feel like has increased. His chin usually with the weight cut that hurts it, but again he's fighting guys with less power. His chin seemed to hold up quite well, and yeah, I thought he looked good. His cardio was good as well. Mm, so I would like to see him fight again at 145. Like I said, making 145 once, it's not easy, but it's doable. Making it multiple times and actually having a long and sustained career there, that's tougher. So so I want to see how he looks in his second fight at 145. Maybe his body gets more acclimated to the weight cut and the weight, and he knows his way around making 145 a little bit better. So maybe he actually looks better, or maybe his body's like, yo, f this, give me some food. I can't keep living off salads. I need to go back up, and that's when you start seeing people miss weight and all this. Um, so I'd like to see him again at 145. Again, I've been skeptical of guys depleting themselves and moving weight classes down south, especially guys that are not small in their current weight classes. But again, lately we've kind of been proven otherwise. Like Aldo's moved to 135. Look, your career as a 45er, losing twice to Max Holloway, having X amount of title shots, it's rough at 145. Going to 135, you hit the reset button, fresh matchups, you got a big name, you can work your way to a title. As long as you're not killing yourself to 135 and you can still perform, 100% do it. So he's clearly doing that. So the same case for Barboza. I want to see him again at 145. I saw that actually, that guy, what's his name? The kickboxer. He fought on that same card. Is it Giga Chiakesi, something like that? Let me see. Giga Chikadze. Yeah, so he actually called Barbosa out, and he's a phenomenal striker, and he looked good against Rivera, right? And yeah, he's a good striker. He needs a bit of a name. Barbosa needs a win. And it's a style that suits both fighters. It's a style that's fun to watch. I mean, I'm down. Why not make it happen? If Barbosa gets a win and proves that again he can make 145, and it seems like it's a thing he can do multiple times, all right, now you got to win. Let's see what you can do against another top 10, something like that. So but yeah, I'm in support of it. Again, I'm always skeptical, but once you hit the scales and you got receipts and you prove you can make the weight class, what can you say? You know what I'm saying? Not only prove you can make the weight class, but also perform well. There's nothing for me to say, but I can't hate on that. You know what I'm saying? As long as you're performing and making the weight, you fight in whatever weight class you want. All right. Okay. Some betting here. I don't really bet, but I can help you out with that maybe. Dars Von Nag. Hey, Danny. Set the betting line for the favorite in these hypothetical matchups. Ngannou versus Jones. Israel versus Jones. Conor versus Tony. Justin versus Khabib. So I'm not super knowledgeable about the actual betting odds, So I would, just keep that in mind when I'm breaking these down. So for Ngannou Jones, me personally, I would favor Ngannou. I think he would be the favorite, in my opinion. But I understand that that's a controversial opinion. Most people would favor Jon Jones, given the history and what he's done and what he's been able to do. But I think people get a little bit lost in that because you can't measure a fighter for what he's done. Because in that case, a guy like BJ Penn and other aging fighters that are still active and are no longer world class but have done world class shit would always be getting title shots if that's the case. You got to measure how a fighter is in the last 2-3 fights. That's it. How has he looked in the last year? In the last year, again, Jon Jones could prove me wrong. I'm just speculating with the information that I currently have. That's what I'm doing here. With the last few fights, Um, Santos and Reyes, he got tagged up. Both fights I thought he lost. They were extremely close, don't get me wrong. But both fights I thought he lost. Ngannou's not a guy you want to get tagged up with. Ngannou just needs to tag you once. Not even a combination, just once, and you're out. That's it. So Jones has an amazing chin, but as good as his chin is, he might be able to take a couple shots, especially if he blocks them, and he doesn't get the full force, and if he kind of rolls with them and all that. But eventually, if you're a fairly hittable fighter, Ngannou will knock your ass out. So, but again, Jones is good at distance. He can wrestle, but we've yet to see that in his last performances. So if he's able to have a vintage Jon Jones performance, Jones should beat Ngannou. But the recent Jones that we've seen, I think I would favor Ngannou. And I would place the betting odds still very even, though. I would say I'm not very good at the odds. What it would be like a minus one something and a plus one something as well. Like it'd be kind of right there. It'd be kind of even. It'd be close to even, slightly favoring Ngannou. That's how I would go. Israel Adesanya versus Jon Jones. Now this is a little bit interesting because I feel like Jones' wrestling might not be as good as it used to, but it's still there, and he still has size on Adesanya. Adesanya is not a big middleweight. So I would favor Jon Jones in that bout. And I would go Jon Jones being like a plus 200 something. Again, I'm not very good at those. I would assume that'd be a decent favorite, but not very big. We're not talking about plus 300, 400, and beyond. Conor versus Tony. That's an interesting one because Conor's got power and precision. Tony can get hit, and Tony has a great chin for sure. But Tony has such a deep gas tank, and Conor doesn't. So it'd be one of those things where like first round knockout for Conor would be like, it wouldn't be the best return, but beyond that, it would. Like if you were to pick Conor decision in that fight, especially if it's a 5-rounder, and he pulls it off, you're gonna make big money for sure. Again, Conor's coming off a win. Tony isn't. Conor's younger. Tony's older. You got to go with Conor in this one. I think Conor would be the favorite, slightly. Justin versus Khabib. I think Khabib has to be a big favorite. I would say what were the odds for Poirier? I think close to it. Maybe like a plus 400. Wait, plus would be underdog. My bad. So I've got these mixed up. So yeah, Justin would be like a plus 400. Yeah. So whatever I said, reverse it. Again, I don't bet a whole lot. I've bet on a few soccer matches, but it's never gone my way. If it's a really big one, like Champions League, and I'm rooting for my team, I do like to bet a little bit because it adds a little bit more excitement to the game, but not because I'm trying to make money. It's just to make the game more fun, and the downfall more miserable, basically. So, but yeah. But in fighting, I don't bet on fighting. Ooh, this one's a good one. By Tien Trin. Who was the biggest winner of the last 3 pandemic cards? Fantastic question. Great question. So with the UFC wrapping up the 3 events, there's obviously been a lot of big winners. I would say Gaethje is the biggest winner because he actually has the title in his hands, unlike any other fighter from those 3 cards. I think that's the most obvious one. He just punched his ticket into fighting Khabib, who's a big fight, not only legacy wise but also money wise. Khabib's a star, so you're getting it's like the Head and Shoulders shampoo and conditioner, 2-in-1, baby. You're getting a big fight, you're getting that money fight, and you're also fighting for the real belt and really adding on to your legacy. You ain't fighting just a big name. So for sure that you get that 2-in-1. So Gaethje is by far the biggest winner of those trio. After that, I would say, believe it or not, Glover Teixeira. Prior to Glover Teixeira fighting Anthony Smith, I don't think there was much talk about him, period. Like, yeah, he's a fighter in the light heavyweight division. That's about it. Then all of a sudden, fight week rolls up, or fight days, because, we were all still thinking about UFC 249 post. But, a day or two before the fight, you start looking at the Wikipedia pages, you start rolling through, you go, oh, wait, hold on, wait a minute. 3-fight win streak? fighting a recent title challenger. I tweeted this too, like moments before the fight. If he were to win, you can't deny title contention. The guy's right there. 4-fight win streak, win over a recent title challenger. Someone who would you consider young blood in the division? Yeah, that's a pretty big win. So Glover Teixeira went from just a fighter kind of getting fights and, I don't even think people really understood or really had in mind that he was in a 3-fight win streak. I mean, we'd seen him lose, we'd seen him win, so it was kind of just like, he's a big name, a veteran, former title challenger, right? Just still lingering in the division, still very capable, obviously. But then he goes out and beats Anthony Smith and puts that kind of performance where people were freaking out on Twitter. Just think about this. People were freaking out that 40-year-old Glover Teixeira was just putting it on Anthony Smith. People were hoping that the corner threw in the towel, that the referee stopped the fight. People didn't even want to watch it anymore. I mean, I'm used to violence because I cover this for a living, so I can see some pretty nasty things and some pretty gruesome fights and some pretty crazy wars, and I felt kind of weird watching that, especially like when you see Anthony Smith telling his corner, "My teeth are falling on," then they just send him back out there. You go, ooh, that's kind of hard to watch. I was watching with a few friends, and this girl, a friend of mine, she's not really used to watching fighting in general, and the whole time she was kind of like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about this. And then that fight rolled through, and she's like, why would people do this? Like, she literally asked me that. Like, there's people that don't have any tolerance for violence. Like, they see a fight and they just, so it's evolutionary. It like triggers something in their brain, and they just like, yo, this is crazy. Like, I can't watch this. So that was a hard fight to watch, and I haven't felt like that in a long time, to be quite honest. And yeah, it was a pretty bad stoppage. One of the worst, or lack of stoppages. One of the worst sort of officiating I've seen in quite a bit. So, anyways, think about that. Think about what Glover did, and it was a fantastic performance. He came back from getting rocked. His boxing looked great. His grappling looked great. His pacing looked great. His decision making looked great. Glover looked spectacular. He went from being just a guy in the division with a big name to all of a sudden being a title contender. So I would say after Justin Gaethje, he is the biggest winner. Yeah. Justin Gaethje is the obvious one because the dude's got actual physical gold on him. So, you know what I'm saying? All right, I'll take a couple more. It is 7:55, so maybe I'll go. I know I started a little bit later, so I'll go a couple minutes over that. Oh, so apparently Hachiko was in the background. Yeah, he's sleeping now, so I don't want to bother him. But I showed him at the beginning of the stream. So when this is over, you can rewind and see his cute face. All right. Let's see what other questions. Ooh. Brandon asks, Danny, who do you think wins in a Rose versus a Zhang match for the belt? Great question, because I feel like in this case, Rose has, because she lost and the loss was so bad in the sense of like, one, it was a crazy slam where people were like, ooh, I don't like that. Very much like what we were discussing. Those moments that you go, all right, this ain't cool, It was a bad slam, and then the repercussions from that slam and that fight were so great that she was like, it wasn't really the slam itself, but it stemmed out of that, because I'm sure if she would have won and retained her belt, I don't really know if she would have shared everything that she shared in the post-fight presser, which was, I'm done with the sport. Like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, this and that. I might retire. Peace out. TBD, basically. So I feel like all that kind of, there was like a negative cloud surrounding that. But people forget, prior to the slam, prior to all the negative, or not negative, but like the, I guess, negative towards MMA competition that stemmed out of that, overshadowed her performance. I think that first round with Andrade is like the best she's ever looked. I mean, she's looked great against Jędrzejczyk, but against Andrade, woo, she was popping that jab, slipping, movement, footwork, takedown defense prior to the slam. She was just looking good, man. She was looking real good, and I feel like people forget she might very well be the lady to beat Weili Zhang, maybe. or Zhang Weili. Um, I would certainly suspect that whatever we saw against you in Jacek, it would be very similar, because Rose is a great striker, a fun striker to watch, and I feel like if she goes, you know, she'll meet fire with fire with Zhang Weili. So it'll be maybe not an instant classic, because I do feel like Joanna brings certain things that would inspire that type of performance. But I feel like we'd be in for a hell of a fight. So I'd totally be down to watch that fight for sure. I hope it actually happens. Maybe Rose can get back into title contention fairly soon. I know, remember, keep in mind, two of her relatives passed away because of COVID-19. So, that it takes time to heal from that kind of stuff. So hopefully she's doing a lot better now that some time has passed, and we see her fight whenever she's ready. But I would totally be down for that fight. And I think, as of now, I think Zhang Weili. I was a big Zhang Weili skeptic for those that followed my coverage on MMA Junkie leading up to UFC 248. I actually thought Joanna Jędrzejczyk was going to win, and I thought Zhang Weili, and rightfully so. I had facts, and I had factual information to back up my opinions. Where that Zhang Weili was really unproven. She hadn't beaten anybody really like with a big name. I mean, Tisha Torres is a big name, but like she's on a bit of a losing streak. Then she beat Jessica Aguilar, who's very good as well, but she's in the later stages of his career. What's Jessica Taylor? No, Denise Taylor, something like that. She's no longer in the UFC, so I'm like, bro, she's fighting like one of the best strawweights of all time, the best strawweight of all time. Jędrzejczyk. She could very well beat her, but I have questions, so I'm gonna go with Jędrzejczyk, who's the proven commodity, and I was proven wrong. She's clearly championship material. She's clearly one of the best talents right now at 115 pounds. So, given recency bias, I'm gonna go with Zhang Weili, but I would not discount Rose in that fight at all, at all. I'd be down to watch it. I think that'd be a fantastic fight. Bro, every week, bro. Every week. Danny, this is random, but are you high? Dude, my eyes are not even red or glossy. Every week. Every week, even in the comments. No. I stopped smoking weed for a while. But yeah. It was giving me anxiety. It was weird. And it didn't before. So like I feel like my relationship with it kind of changed. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna take a break. So I've been on a break from it. But no, I'm not stoned. But I am enjoying a decent Coors Light. You know what? Now that I just remember that it's free, it actually tastes a little bit better. Not gonna lie. All right, I'll take one more question and I'll dip out. Ooh, okay. This one's cool. A little bit of the industry, not really fighting. Renzo MG. What does it mean for the world of podcasts that Joe Rogan signed an exclusive deal with Spotify? Ooh, great question. And again, shit. I mean, this is all very new too. But so this is what's been going on. So for the most part, is like if you have a podcast, you want it everywhere, because some people have Apple Podcasts or whatever, Apple Music. Some people have Spotify. Like for the most part, like most of my friends use Spotify, but I use Apple Music. And Apple Podcasts. Like, I just feel like I have an iPhone, so the app itself is just, it's an Apple software, so it's just built to like work better with the actual hardware, and yeah, just like the whiteness rather than the black and green. I think it looks much cleaner. Plus, a lot of stuff on Apple Music gets released first before Spotify. I mean, Apple just has a big pool. But as far as podcasting goes, everyone wants it everywhere. Like if you look at any podcast, like look at any MMA podcast, it'd be like Stitcher, everything. Like you just want your content to be available everywhere, just so it can reach the most people possible, right? Because like I said, some people use certain platforms and some others don't. So you want it to be available for everyone. Now, what my feeling is kind of going is that for the most part, like all these all these like music streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, and there's a few others. They've all been kind of like, obviously they're competition to each other, but like they do things like, I don't know. I feel like they've done things as far as like playlists and like certain features and stuff like that to kind of stand out from the competition. But I feel like we're gonna start entering an era, and I feel like it's kind of already. Again, this is not the very first instance that it's happened. I'm sure there are things that are exclusive to Spotify, then you can't find on Apple Podcasts or Apple Music right now as we speak. But for the most part, if you're a pretty big podcast, you're out everywhere. That's just the nature of it. And I feel like we're gonna enter an arms race now with people being at home and consuming a lot more media than ever before, where you're going to see these exclusive deals, very much like Netflix, very much like Hulu, um, Amazon, Prime Video, what else? All these other streaming platforms, right? Like video streaming, where, you know, if you want to watch Narcos, that's exclusive to Netflix, so you got to get Netflix. If you want to watch, what else? If you want to watch High Maintenance, you got to go to HBO, and all these video streaming platforms, even with MMA, The Zone, right? Bellator, Fight Pass has its own things, right? And you just see it play out. I feel like we're going to enter an area where that's going to bleed out into audio as well. So this is a perfect example. Spotify dropped, I'm sure, a handsome amount of money on Joe Rogan to be like, yo, be exclusive to Spotify, And people, for example, that are huge fans of Joe Rogan, he has such a big and huge fan base and loyal fan base as well. I mean, he's one of the most successful podcasters in the world. He's a mega star. He's huge on YouTube. I mean, that guy's killing it as far as that type of content. He's killing it everywhere in life. But anyways, yeah, we're gonna enter a deal where we're gonna enter an era in audio where that's gonna be the case as well. Like these audio platforms are gonna fight for content as well. So again, somebody like myself that listens to JRE, especially when they have MMA guests on, would be like, fuck, I can't get this on Apple Podcasts anymore. I can't get this, Apple Music. I might switch over to Spotify, maybe. I'm certainly gonna download the app now because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and yeah, if it's not available on Apple Podcasts, which I use, I'm gonna have to download a Spotify, and that means another person, another user subscribing to the platform, what is staying on the platform, looking at advertisement through the platform. So, yeah, it's huge for Joe Rogan. Congrats to him. I mean, he's not gonna watch this anyways, but congrats to him, and yeah, that's pretty cool. All power to him and Spotify. But yeah, I got to read the details of it. I saw the headlines, but I haven't like dove into like the nitty gritty of the deal. I don't know if they announced for how long or what kind of stipulations there is surrounding that. But yeah. Anonymous dude just wrote, Joe Rogan making that paper for sure, 100%. Yeah. All right. Somebody disliked my video. Well, fuck you too. All right. Yeah, I believe that was it for the questions. Might be a laughing man. So maybe. I actually check this out. Is it around here? Oh yeah. Check this out. All right, so I got this thing with actually shouts out to anonymous dude 123. Because of your contributions, I was able to buy this little camera wall mount, which is just really a wall mount. It's not really just for cameras, but I bought a lighting kit as well. This is a 1/4 inch, so just your standard little shoe for cameras and lighting and everything that really you use in media. So I'm using actually right now the lamp of my desk, so it's that tungsten light, which is kind of yellowish. And I'm actually bought a decent lighting, which I'll hang to these shelves that I have behind here that you guys can't see, using this thing that I bought with your donations, and I'll have better lighting. So maybe in the future I won't look high with the lighting, maybe in the future those comments will stop, maybe, or maybe they will get worse, and I don't know. We'll find out when the light gets here and I set this thing up. But But yeah, great question. All right, yeah, so that does it. I'm an hour deep. I appreciate everybody that submitted questions. I appreciate everybody that subscribed to this channel. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, because you're missing out, and you're gonna be missing out on some cool shit that I'm gonna do in the future. And yeah, so please remember, give this video a thumbs up. Don't be that one hater that gave me a thumbs down. Subscribe to the channel, share it, tell your friends about it. That's how this thing spreads. Follow me on Twitter at Danny Segura TV. Same goes for Instagram and Facebook. I post regular content regularly there. And let's see, updates as far as I'm concerned. I really recently spoke to Glover Teixeira's head trainer, the guy that's been with him since day one. John Hackleman, the pit master. Obviously, you guys probably know him from cornering and being Chuck Liddell's trainer, all these years. And we talked about Glover 2.0, and he described exactly why Glover's having sort of this resurgence in this career, including, and he was very modest about this, seeking other coaches. And he named those coaches and gave them all the credit in the world. Also combining his pit workouts with the PI stuff, as well as just some things about Glover as well. He discussed the stoppage as well, which he went deep into it as well. Believe it or not, contrary to what most people think, he didn't agree with it. He said he would have stopped it earlier, but he's not the guy. He says it's complicated. He's not going to go in there and do some character assassination on Mark Montoya. I'm guessing those two are friends, but he does make a good point, because a lot of people are sort of hating on him, and the lack of stoppage, I don't think it says anything about him as a person. Like, he told me, he's like, trust me, 100%, he's a great guy. Trust me, he loves his fighters. And I believe that 100%. I'm sure Mark Montoya, I've met him before on a few occasions. I'm sure he's a great dude, and this doesn't really speak volumes to this doesn't speak to his character, but people make mistakes. That's something to acknowledge as well. So although he said all those things, I do think it was not the right thing to do, but again, this doesn't speak about his character. I'm sure he's a good dude, and look, people make mistakes, and it's a hard job, especially when your fighter is telling you, I can do this, I'm good to go. And we've seen it post-fight coverage. Anthony Smith has doubled down that he wanted to be in there and all that. But certainly, I think cornermen and referees have a obligation for the fighters, because fighters are going to fight. That's what they do. So, you got to save them from themselves sometimes. But anyway, so those are kind of like the updates. And that's it. Follow me on Instagram. I'm taking a little trip to upstate, and I'll be taking Hachiko. So we're going to go to a lake and everything with some friends. Got an Airbnb. Had to get out of the city, man. The city has been brutal. Just kind of living in a tiny little apartment with a dog and a roommate. And I go out, obviously, like take walks with the dog and stuff like that, but obviously not nearly as much as I used to before coronavirus. So it does get rough, being just stuck in a tiny little apartment in the epicenter of the coronavirus. So yeah, getting away a little bit for a few days. So I'm sure I'll be posting some stuff on social, mostly Instagram. So follow me there. Anyhow, I've rambled enough. Again, I appreciate all of you. Love you all. Stay safe, please. And please subscribe to this channel. Tell your friends about it. This shit's cool, right? All right, later, guys.